Hi everyone, it's Tanya Tracy with Flow Physical Therapy and Pilates in Asheville, North Carolina. And I'm back with a Feature Area Friday this week. I have no cats that are AWOL to get in the way of my recording. So as promised last week, I'm going to be showing you how to use this tennis ball to do a foot release. And as everybody who's watched any of these videos knows, I really enjoy working with foot and ankle stuff. It's one of those things that I find incredibly fascinating. So I like to gather different treatment options to show people and to use so that you can work with a wide variety of people. And this foot release, I have been doing this for probably over a decade now. I don't even remember where I learned this first. It was probably another practitioner that I saw doing it and asked what it was. And from that point on, I've continued to do it. And this foot release, there's a bunch of different ones, but it's very quick, it's very simple, which is something I also like. And I feel like it gets called magic. It's kind of ridiculous, but you check yourself before you do the release, then you do the foot release with the tennis ball, and you check yourself afterwards. And typically what I find is most people are fascinated by how much of a difference they can feel after they do the release, and just by doing something incredibly simple. So this ball, when you do the release, you're doing it in standing, and I'll show you that in a moment. But the spots on the foot that you're doing this, I'm going to show you my foot now. You're going to go, if here's the ball of the foot, you're going right behind the ball of the foot, kind of in the middle. That's the first spot for the tennis ball. Then the next spot will be right here in the center of the foot. And then the last spot, it's not on the heel bone, you come just in front of the heel bone. And that'll be the last place you put the ball and add pressure. And I'll show you again in a moment how to do this. It's pretty simple. So the other thing I sometimes use is this ball. It's called a Franklin ball, and I have no affiliation with this company. I've just had this ball for years. It's a little squishier, as you can see. I can kind of deform it a little bit more. So for people with sensitive feet, a little squishier ball sometimes helps. But I will say I typically use this because it has just enough give to be firm, but it's not hard like a lacrosse ball. And they're cheap and easy to get. So the tie-in with Thai massage. I took a course a year ago here in Asheville with Living Sabai, which is a massage therapy school for Thai massage, with my wonderful friend Jill Berinsky. And I was very fascinated by it. And in Thai, there's this idea of what they call sen lines, similar to the idea of meridians in acupuncture. And so these lines are what they tend to follow, and there's certain points that you will go to when you're doing Thai massage that they find to be significant when it comes to treating the body. The reason I found this class really fascinating, and why I find this fascinating that I was doing already, is some of these spots that I was pressing on in Thai massage corresponded with the spots that I've been putting this ball on the foot. So when you go to do some thumb pressure on the foot, the points in the Thai massage that I was doing started here, same spot, then you would go to here, and then you would go to here. So the first three spots were exactly the same. And then you'd work your way back up the foot. Another spot here, another spot here, and the last one behind the big toe. So I found this fascinating because the whole time I've been doing these, what I've told patients in the past is that you're pressing on some proprioceptors, or little kind of nerve receptors in the foot that give feedback to the brain and help it wake up a little bit so it can feel the ground a little bit better and feel the stuff it's touching a little better, like puts it more on alert. And I also was telling people it's also kind of like a fascia or a tissue release of the foot. But I couldn't really explain how that was necessarily going all the way up the foot, other than the idea of fascia in our body. We kind of think of it like a cobweb. So if you pull on one end of a cobweb, you still affect the rest of the cobweb. So that was how I've explained it in the past, is it's tying into that fascia and those receptors in the foot. That is more of what I think of as a Western medicine explanation. And taking the Thai massage class, I found it really interesting because then here you see these same points being used in Eastern medicine, but they're seen as like send lines. And their idea is they're energy lines. So I guess my point with this, and what I found incredibly fascinating between the two, was in my mind, sometimes I think it comes down to just semantics. One portion calls it one thing, one portion calls it another. They intermingle and they get some of the same results. So in my mind, I guess I just don't really care what you call it as long as it works. So that was where I found the Thai massage connection to be really fascinating. And even with the rest of the Thai course, what I found was some of these lines that I was following along, what they called the Sen lines, when you're feeling them, some of them actually are kind of these fascial connections between muscles. So whether or not it's a Sen line, an energy line, or a fascial line, which is, again, more Western medicine, to me it didn't really matter. It's just the result of what you get after you're working on those lines. So this is a way for you to do either some fascia release at home or some Sen line work at home. And it's very effective. So I'm going to pause the video, and the next video portion, what you'll see is just a close-up of my foot so that I can show you how to use this ball. Okay, so as we said, the first spot where the ball goes is basically right behind the ball of the foot, near the center, or you can even kind of think of it like that pressure point behind like the second toe. But again, it's not on the ball of the foot, it's back just behind that. So you're hanging out here, you put gentle to moderate pressure on that spot for about 5 seconds. And with the toes, you're not letting the toes flex, you're not trying to curl them down, you just let them relax. So you relax into the spot for 5 seconds. And then after 5 seconds, you bring the ball to the center of the foot. Same thing, 5-second pressure, and again, it's right there at the center of the foot, kind of through that arch section. And then the last spot, you roll forward, just in front of the heel bone. So we're not on the heel bone, we're in front of it, still in soft tissue. And again, 5 seconds, that gentle to moderate pressure. We don't need to go hard. You don't need to push it as hard as you possibly can go. We're not masochists. We don't need pain to make it better. Gentle pressure to moderate pressure tends to be much better for our body to relax. And that's all there is to it. So then from that point, you would do the other foot. So again, I do this in standing. You can use a wall, or you can use a countertop or a chair back to stabilize yourself so you're not trying to balance while you're doing this with your foot. Okay. So I talked about doing a pre and post test. So the pre-test is you just simply bend forward towards the floor, trying to touch the floor. You check in, see how does your back feel, how does the back half of your leg feel, check for tension. Then the next step for checking is you're going to put hands on the hips. You pick one leg up to where your knee is at your hip height, and you balance. And again, you check in on your balance. Is your foot wobbling a lot? Can it hold steady? Do you lose it to one side or the other? Do you have to pull your arms out? So check your balance. After you do those 2 checks, you do the foot release with the tennis ball. And then you come back and do your checks again. You bend forward again, see what it feels like. You do your balance again and see what it feels like. What I have typically had for feedback is, I would say at least 85% to 95% of people notice something different afterwards. Typically, they notice less hamstring tension, which is always good. Some improved balance. Some of them notice that their calves don't feel as tight when they bend forward. So all of these things are good things that aren't just for the foot. They affect the entire line up, that whole biomechanical chain. And that's what we're really doing here, is when we're wanting to work on our body, we don't just only want to work on that small space that we're having trouble with. We want to treat the stuff around it too, so everything is in a good working balance. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you try it over the weekend, and if you like it, show your friends. It's a cool party trick. And that's it for this week. So please share this if you liked it. like the video, follow the video, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And if you want to know more about my clinic and what I do, the address is flowptandpilates.com. And I will see you all next week.